Hello, welcome to Move to Improve. We have here today a very special guest, Cory Fagan. Nice to see you. So Cory he's got an honors in physical education and master's in kinesiology from UFC. Started his career as a strength and conditioning coach from UFC to SAIT. And then for 25 years plus, he's been the owner of TCR Sports Lab.
You bet.
That's right. And so TCR Sports Lab, very, very cool shop. I think it's one of a kind, right? Because you have a physiology lab. You don't see that very often. So that includes an altitude chamber. Yep. You guys do personal coaching, cycling classes, bike fitting, sizing, repairs. Yep. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, that's VO2 Max.
VO2 Max.
That's why we're here, right? VO2. Yeah. It's amazing how 25 years goes by.
No kidding.
No kidding, man.
Yeah,
it's exciting, and it's still a great. Even though I created the company, it's a great job to go to every day. You know, it's I'm never needing motivation to go in. I'm never quite sure what I'm going to see, but there's lots of things that keep me busy in there.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing niche, and it's a great position, and I don't believe there's many people that are doing what you do in the city.
Yeah, the VO2 is ever since like 2000. I bought my first machine back then, and I just thought the data was fantastic. You know, like you can get all this information, and I'm always a believer in more direct science and data and versus predictive things and tests. And this gives you the raw deal, and it's, hey, if the pros use it, why can't the general public use it? So
no kidding.
Yeah. So I want to jump in. So if it's okay, I mean the first question, we're going to do a podcast on VO2 Max.
Sure, we got to define it.
What's the first question? Yeah, and that is, can you define VO2 Max? Let's start at the beginning.
Go right back to the general equation, but it's considered let's go cardiorespiratory fitness, cardiovascular. People want to know you have a good metabolism. That was the original thing. That person has a high metabolism. What's it actually mean? And it comes down to he has a great oxygen carrying ability, capacity. So, that back in the day before this all came out, someone would have a big VO2, a runner. It was probably back in Canada. Look at that great hockey player, Guy Lafleur, Wayne Gretzky. Today, Connor McDavid, they all have one thing in common, big VO2 maxes. So a great metabolism and oxygen carrying ability. Higher VO2, the more endurance you have. And when you look at those types of athletes back then, they're the ones who are always on the ice or for hockey or marathoning just because they have that gift. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and hockey's a good example because it's not necessarily an endurance sport, but you can obviously see that there's a huge need in any sport for having great aerobic capacity because that's in a sense the foundation. Maybe can you differentiate a bit like anaerobic capacity?
Yeah, so anaerobic capacity would be more on the short-term things. So the sprinting, give anything under 30 seconds, that explosive ability has less to do with oxygen, more about power and how well you use sugar. So the VO2 side, oxygen, that's where the work fat burning comes from as well. Aerobic, fat burning, VO2, those are all connected in terms. So where anaerobic is on the other side, short-term sprints. Yeah.
No doubt.
So is your VO2 Max a God-given genetic thing, or is it trainable and developmental?
Both. So I get asked that question by people who come in and say, my VO2 is low, but it's genetic. Yes, but you haven't trained, so you can't stop. We all, after 25 years of testing it, no one really has a low VO2 unless there's some kind of disease.
Right.
So everyone's trainable, and I even get that with athletes. Well, I heard it's limited. Yeah, you give me 10 years, and I'll tell you where your limit is. So I don't like to have that as an excuse, but everyone has an ability to make it grow.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hear some athletes say that I think I'm more of like a type 1 fiber kind of explosive guy. I don't know if my body's genetically that like endurance or going to have that much aerobic capacity. How much truth is there to that versus like nature versus nurture in that sense?
There's fiber typing. So, the explosive fast twitch type 2 fibers, but that doesn't hold back someone's VO2 max. Type 1, you'll see that more with the slow endurance. That being said, the world's biggest VO2 max scores are always from guys in Norway.
Oh, really?
And if you you look at them, yeah, they do cross-country skiing, all this aerobic, fat-burning, VO2 type of work, miles of it. It's in their culture.
Yeah.
So that's, that doesn't really hold anyone back. Type 1, type 2, that's more on the, explosive side, sports side, but yeah.
So I'm wondering about this sometimes.
Yeah.
So today we have a lot of people that are like working remotely, working from home.
Yeah.
Maybe they're people that enjoy doing endurance exercise and sports outside of that. They find an hour every 4 or 5 days a week or something.
Yeah.
But how does that cumulative just sitting and being sedentary all day compare to somebody that has maybe a job like us chiropractors, we're on our feet, we're walking in between rooms, or you do labor work, etc., where you're just moving, maybe not to any intensity, anything beyond like level 1, level 2, but
yeah, I mean, it's better than sitting all day. It's helpful to move. That's helpful. That's where that 10,000 steps a day came in. That's great. Does it improve your VO2 max? No, not so much. You do have to earn it. And like most things, you guys have a skill and you're good with your patients because you put your time in. You earned it. You did your training. You worked on things. You honed your technique. It just doesn't come easy. So, and that's like your grandma used to say. The grandpas used to say, get outside. You need to move. Move. And it's more than just walking.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point. So there must be a lot of interest around, I mean, I hear it in my patient base recently for sure about VO2 Max, in part maybe because of Peter Attia's work. I think that's right. And I know that me and Dr. Yu have read up on it a little bit, and he talks about how crazy important VO2 Max is a marker for longevity and preventing not only physical disease, not only mental health disease, but incredibly powerful for preventing all-cause mortality.
Yes. I have to give a shout out to Peter Attia because on a weekly basis, people come in and say, I need this VO2 test. I heard I need to do it. And which is great.
Well, just for the listeners, how this came about is because at Proactive, we're on the cusp of creating this housebound program, like Cory, like we talked about, and it includes things like genetic testing and wearing a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, and doing a DEXA and wearing an Oura ring. But really importantly, the reason why Cory's here is because it includes VO2 Max as well. Because according to Peter Attia and according to Andrew Huberman and all those people in the health span space, VO2 Max is probably the top proxy for lifespan / health span, right? Think about that. This test alone is the number one test to determine how long you're going to live and how well you're going to live your life in a sense. Like, wow, like it's a proxy. It doesn't mean, basically it's a marker that you should be doing like once a year. We'll get into this or whatnot, but you should be looking at this and with an attempt to improve this because it is the number one marker that tells you how long you're going to live. That's significant. That's basically, I think that's kind of
it's huge.
Want to talk to you about.
Thanks for highlighting the importance of this. No doubt.
So anyway, sorry, Cory, off to you.
Yeah, so that's I thought after 15 years of doing the testings, like it was kind of dying off and it wasn't being pushed, and we just talked about how some NHL pro teams don't use VO2 Max anymore. It's like what's going on here? And then you take a couple of docs and research and kind of go, whoa, let's look at all this data here. And there's thousands, millions of VO2s done. We ourselves have done close to 4,000. And then they look at the data and go, wow, if you're not fit, you're not going to live long. It's pretty simple. And you hit the nail around the head, not beating around the bush, going, well, let's just do your, walking around. That's enough. You hit it right on. If you want to live long, have a great health span, not just live long.
Yeah.
You need to work at it. You need to earn it. And so it set a lot of people's butts on fire. It's like, oh my God, I can't just get away with, my walking around the block is going to help me. And so I love that. So there's been a huge uptick and people are getting healthy and they're coming a little bit scared at first, maybe I said it's not too late. But it's fantastic how someone took the research and just, not someone in exercise physiology or kinesiology went, here's a doc and, we said, let's get this going. And, but, go back over the last 50 years, before you start an exercise program, you're supposed to see your physician.
Yeah.
And for years they wouldn't, nothing was really said. now here's a doc who's come out and said, no, you need to get your VO2 assessed. It's got to be at least this level. Otherwise, you put yourself at risk.
Yeah, we live in a very, very amazing time for that narrative to now be
Yeah.
in the forefront.
Yeah.
And we're going to have that conversation. And for people to understand that this difference between lifespan and health span is, health span includes the amount of time that you're not only disease-free, but functional, right? This is what we all dream of when we get old, where you're completely functional until you're, the last couple of years, and then there's a quick drop-off. That's where they find people that have high VO2 max, people that are physically active, are going to have a higher uptick in function until near the end, where people that don't have that, not only are they going to suffer in the whole lifespan section, but that function will come down earlier into that last decade. So,
yes,
importantly.
I would argue that you want lifespan to exceed normative ranges, and you want health span to equal lifespan. That
would be the goal. Yep.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So when it comes to bringing up your VO2 max, is it, a lot of people might just think, okay, I should be doing endurance, whatever variety of endurance, until failure, as much as possible, as often as possible. You get probably some people coming in with a lot of that mentality.
Yeah. And
can you provide insight into that? Is it just, you work out until you run until you're bagged every day, or is there some more nuance into it?
Yeah, that's another thing that's come out of it. Besides, get your VO2 assessed. Where is it? If it's low, is it high? And then the second part is, naturally for go-getters or just most people, well, I'm going to go down to the local circuit and I'm going to hammer every week and join these classes. I'm going to play hockey here and everything's going to be hard. I'm going to be harder, faster, study hard. Everything's hard. And then basically PRT came out with information that we've known as, when we work with athletes, it's like, no, you need to do zone 2. Like, what is that? What is zone 2? What is this lactate threshold 1? What is this number? So he's putting a definition going, no, you need to spend this much time in the aerobic side, which is counterintuitive to most people. You do not want to go easy. They like the idea you can go easy, but that's what's come out. 3/4 of your training should be in zone 2. So people are coming and going, I want my VO2 max. Yes. Am I at risk? And B, where is my zone 2? And that's terminology we use with athletes for the last 20, 30 years. Now it's in the general public, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Can I take a step back and ask?
Yeah.
So let's say a person's going to get a VO2 max test,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
And they're going to come into your lab and they say, I'm scheduled for a VO2 max. Can you walk me through what they go through, what you go through for that test?
Yeah, so the test itself.
A lot of people are terrified of
Yeah,
it,
they're
right?
terrified, right? You watch your YouTube and the last 3 minutes and they have stuff from the 80s and 90s and guys flying off a treadmill or thrown up on a bike. So that's what it looks like, but it's actually probably the exact opposite. People, if they go to a local Orange Theory workout, that workout there will be harder than a VO2. So the test is generally 15 to 20 minutes. And then basically say for a treadmill test, you start walking. And every 2 minutes you go up by a half mile an hour. Okay, well, I can handle that. That's not so bad. And you get to the point where your body gets into the slightly anaerobic range. You start breathing heavy. And that's as fast as the test goes. That's it.
Really?
From there, okay, great. I'm not going to make you fly off the treadmill. I mean, that's a really bad business model. And then from there, we just use a grade to get a slightly higher heart rate. No one truly maxes out on their very first test, because in order to truly max out, you have to be fit. Everything has to be together, and our body has all these fail-safe mechanisms of going, hey, you know what, my legs are tired. Oh, I couldn't breathe anymore. Well, okay, there's your limiting factor. So total difficulty on a VO2 test, maybe 2 minutes where you're breathing hard, but it's to your own ability. It's not a script where you follow it and, oh, he didn't make that level, and boom, it's over, and he flew off the back. Same with the bike. So it's definitely a test that's done to your individual capabilities. And yeah, there's way harder things that people have done. You go to a local park here in Nose Hill and you go climb up the hill and, hey, let's go to the top here. I'm going to race you. Let's go, Dr. U. Let's go and get to the top. Well, that's harder than a VO2. So it's not a torture test. Perhaps when it first came out, we, instead of using a mask, we had a mouthpiece that you would sometimes drool out of. That's what people remember. Yeah. And a nose pinch. You probably had to go through one of those,
That's harsh.
And then
I remember that at Human Performance Lab.
Yeah. And the clinicians are in white coats and they might say hi to you. strap a monitor on you, and boom, you go. And
Good luck.
so when I left that area, it's like, no, we make this comfortable, relaxing. We're going to sit and talk for 20 minutes first. Like, why are you here? Did you read the book? Or my buddy, did someone refer you? So at the total time, it's not that bad. I had 2 people 3 weeks ago that were 71 and 72 respectively. And just husband and wife who are interested in what you guys are talking about. Where am I?
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody that is more of a developed athlete, would you take them right to the brink more so versus somebody
Sure.
that's coming in and they're new to?
Yeah, like you guys are fit and you have a greater capability, so you'll naturally go that farther versus 2 minutes, you might go 2.5, 3 minutes, and the test will go longer because you can. You have that capability, and the longer you go, the more capability you have, the higher your VO2. Yeah.
So the reality is I think we wanted, Dr. Jurgis and I, when we were talking about why we wanted to do this, is because we wanted to kind of give the listener a better indication of VO2 max as it relates to your average individual, whether or not they're fit or not fit. And so, and because historically we've done this with elite athletes, right? We've gone into the lab, we've done that, and we try to put these parameters in place for them. We see which one's the fittest, and that's part of their testing. But now it's coming to the general public, and that's how we met, right? Because I'm creating this healthspan program. And like I said, as a proxy for lifespan, healthspan, like, holy cow, that's an important test to kind of use as a gauge, because everybody wants objective measures now.
Yeah.
Everybody wants something to say, hey, like, I want to kind of take my health into my own hands. What does that look like? So VO2 max testing, the CGM, blood work, they can look at, and they can test and retest and retest. And now we've got a series of data points so we can determine if we're going in the right direction and how that's maintaining our health, right?
Yeah.
So someone comes into you and they said, okay, well, you know what? I just want to get a VO2 max because I heard from all these guys out there, from this podcast, from, listening to Dr. Peter Attia, to Andrew Huberman, to David Sinclair, to all the people in the healthspan space, VO2 max, it's the way to go. So what do I do? Okay, you go through this, you get this test done, you're going to get some results. That serves as their baseline.
That's their baseline.
Got it. So question is, for everybody listening and for anybody who wants to pursue doing VO2 max, when do I do my next one? Like we kind of know, we're kind of getting into the training. We can search that. We know it's a lot of zone 2 training. There's probably a little bit of hit in there as well, whatnot. But it's about getting fit. It's about improving your cardiovascular threshold. It's about improving your cardiovascular function overall, right? And so there's a lot of zone 2 type training there. But so we're going to come back. So do we come back in a week? Do we come back in a month, 6 months, a year? Do we do this annually, semi-annually, biannually? Like, so how often should we be doing this test?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long way to get to this question.
So you come in, you get your test done, you get your VO2. Where do I rank? How do I compare with others in my own age and gender? Great. I see where I'm sitting at. And people, you can just show them the tables. This is where you're at. This is how you compare it. Oh, I see it. Now what do I do with it? All right, here's your zone 2. This is where you spend most of your time. Here's your, like you said, here's your high-end stuff. Great. Now I'll ask them, are you going to do something about it? Do you want to do something about it? Okay, yes, I do. All right, well, let's come back in generally 4 to 6 months to get them started. Some people can go quarterly. We've done that, who are really motivated. And, you can, hey, if your health's important and you come in and it's a relatively inexpensive test to do, come back in a quarter. Great. And then once you get yourself back into a safe zone, meaning your VO2 is okay, it's above average, it's not the low risk zone, that's great, awesome, then people do an annual thing as a checkup, as a reminder. It's why, like, some people want to sign up for a running race or a bike event. Annual thing. Why? I got something in 6 months, let's get this going at my VO2 in 6 months.
I love it, right? Because you need the goals. If you don't have the health goals, then it's not going to happen to you.
So that's how that works. And then after that, generally what we do is we kind of get into the next step of that, which is the lactate threshold work. So no more mask, and we just look at how their zones are changing, if their fitness is improving. So are they getting faster for the same heart rate, more powerful for the same heart rate? Can they row faster as well? We can do it in rowing and kayaking as well.
Right on.
So trying to open it up to everyone, and this works for all types of people, whether people are into power sports, so like a sprinter, or then a person doing a half marathon next year. So it's like a goal event, and it's a check-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have follow-up questions for you, if that's okay.
Well, I just want to
Yeah, go ahead.
define for people? Lactate threshold is the point in which your aerobic capacity starts to shift over into anaerobic, and then you're therefore going on that kind of high energy short term that you develop a deficiency. No, sorry.
You're going to hit the wall.
Yeah, you're going to hit the wall.
Yep.
Okay. Before you start going into anaerobic, that you're gonna pay for it. You're gonna hit that end point where you're gonna have to pay back that energy consumption.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Cory knows this more than all of us, but like if you're running a marathon, you kind of want to almost be right that lactate threshold the whole time. Once you start to go past that, you're gonna hit the wall, right? Yeah. So we want to monitor that. We want to make sure that you are clear at the pace that you can go if you're running a marathon that just keeps you under that threshold, so you can optimize performance, yet not hit that wall, right?
Yeah.
You start to build up that lactate. You start, and PhD change change your pH, and you're just basically becoming more acidic and breaking down that actin-myosin contraction, hitting the wall. Anyways, first question is, so with lactate threshold, you're still doing pinprick? I mean, not still, you're doing pinprick?
Still doing the pinprick. We take just off one finger usually, and every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes a test, probably 15 minutes.
Did you see that there's new technology come out as a wearable?
So it's coming out. There was some stuff, 20 years ago, and it was like a size of your iPhone, and it's strapped to your calf.
Really?
But it felt like you're running with
for sure
a phone on your leg. I was like, well, it's coming.
Yeah.
Then the wearables are coming.
Yeah.
If all they have to do is just change the algorithm inside there to detect lactate. So that's going to come, and there's more and more data coming out. So for sure.
I want to ask if you had any experience with that, because I don't know how precise, accurate, reliable is the data coming out of, with a wearable for lactate threshold. Never heard of that before, and then I saw this. I'm like, wow, is this a thing?
Yeah, so it's kind of at the same time as oxygen pulse ox. Yeah, so they have them watches now. They have them years and years on your finger in the hospital. We use that a lot in our altitude chamber, using light to detect it. The downside of that, though, the wrist heart rates, they're still not the same as a chest strap. It's taking time to get there. It will get there. So right now, the way of going into like a CGM, like a pinprick, that's where I see it going to be accurate. That's why athletes can't, if they're running fast, they can't rely on a wrist-based infrared. They do need to have it better. So they're using back to a strap. Yeah. But it's now, like, if there's money goes behind it, look out.
Yeah, it's coming, man, for sure, right? Yeah. And that's so amazing that that's Peter Attia's third generation healthcare, right? Yeah. That's the whole idea of, okay, so we do a great job at detecting, diagnosing, and managing end-stage disease, but with the failings of our healthcare system now, it's so overloaded that people just want to take care of themselves. So if we can go back in time and we can start, looking at our glucose levels and looking at when we're training our lactate threshold and taking our VO2 max testing, and like all these things that we can actually look at, then people are just excited about that. And because it's such a massive market, it seems like it's accelerating, right? What's coming out in the technology, which is super cool. Yeah. I'm excited that VO2 max testing is resurging. Right?
Me too. I've always believed in the information you get, which is fantastic, and it's just not for the elite people. I think that's the less than 1%. It's the other 99 is the everyday person out there. I want to live longer. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go on, assisted care and senior living because I can't move anymore. It's hitting people right between the eyes. Like, no, you need to move. You need to earn this, and it's not that hard, but you got to do more than what you think for most people.
But if we were to do a SWOT analysis on VO2 max, okay, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and we did that 6 months ago or a year ago, we would have went, holy, opportunities are abound because it's starting to come into the health span space, right? Yeah. It's starting to kind of become well known. So we're looking at that. And now if we were to do a SWOT analysis, we would go into the threats category and we would say, okay, so now we have wearables like an Oura Ring that are saying, oh, we can give you data on VO2 max. How is that? And I'm not saying a threat to VO2 max. I'm saying a threat to the way you do VO2 max. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I've written some blogs on that, and I think it's great. First off is that more people wear the word. Those who are really into the training and get into it and they want a direct number, then they'll always come to a lab like myself. But there's, 1 or 2 labs in a city of 1.5 million people. And then there's 2 in Alberta.
Yeah.
So that's not accessible. Garmin has it as well. I mean, all these, they're just, using, the more data you collect, the better the VO2 Max gets. So what I would come in, or a lab would come in, and like, here's your exact number. And then you can override your R ring value. And then that's another data point for the ring. The next step in that then is learning how to calculate, you got your VO2, but that's just the entry into the door, into the room here. And the next step is what's everything underneath that? Where's my zone 2? Where do I do my HIIT training? And that's where, the VO2 is great, but then I need to people, okay, great, that's your number, put that away now. Let's work on it. And that's where the rings and et cetera have to really get better or motivate people to, here's your zone 2, work at this range. The downside of some predictive formulas is the gauge that we use for intensity, how to work out is heart rate. Everyone's different. All of us in this room, I'm 52 and my max heart rate's still 196. That's the same one I had when I was 22.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's good. I just, hey, that's how that was my DNA there. I've had the people coming around the same age, they're 180.
I remember about 30 years ago training for a marathon with this girl.
Yeah.
And she had like a heart rate of like 165, 170, and she could carry on a conversation. Like,
Wow.
no problem.
Yeah.
It was like her crazy, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, the best that we have right now for zone 2, if we're not using some sort of data, right, is basically, let's go by breathing rate. Be able to have a conversation. So having something a little bit more precise in the data, a little more accurate in the data would be is the way to go, right?
Yeah, those terms of rate of perceived exertion, I'm a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, what's this phone number? I don't know. Just, throw a can out the window, see if he grabs it. We want some numbers. We want data. We're tech, we have that now. So I think it's the Oura rings, all the wearables are coming out. It's great.
So you think that those are going to actually add to the true way, the most reliable, accurate, precise way of doing
and people
VO2
come
Max.
in and go, and they come in to verify.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what my Oura ring says and my VO2 Garmin watch says. Great, let's verify it.
There has to be a greater degree of variability.
That's very,
right?
very cool to take that and go, okay, sure, this is your VO2 Max, but let's break those into subcomponents, and then what zone of training are you personally going to get the most benefit?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting way to put it. The other thing I was kind of curious about is I know there's some movement towards breathing physiology and mechanics, and that's becoming a growing interest of mine. And do you ever look at an athlete and go, we need to focus on this person's breathing maybe more than anything?
Yeah, at the end of the test, I always ask people, what was the limiting factor? Was it your lungs or your legs? Okay, legs, what's that usually mean? Was it poor running efficiency, cycling efficiency, or strength? So what's that mean? Go see your strength coach, go to your personal trainer. You're not strong enough to carry your current mass. All right, that's easy to do, and it doesn't have to, just getting moving again. Again, move will help. The lung side is always interesting because that's usually you can hear it through the ventilation that their legs want to go, but the lungs stop. So they pulls them out. And it's like, well, how are you breathing? There's you go into other parts of that would be on the yoga side. They're looking at deep breaths, belly breaths, dropping the diaphragm. All that can help with that. That's one of the reasons also we built an altitude chamber. It's basically a room with less oxygen, so it forces more ventilation. Fortunately, there's only one in Western Canada.
Wow, you got it.
So you got it. But, you go hiking. When you go hiking you're going to get more breaths per minute than you would be at lower altitudes. But yeah, breath is, that's a limiting factor. And now we just came through COVID and long COVID. And I have tested many people pre-COVID, and now there's about a dozen guys I work with regularly now who have long COVID. You see the respiration; it's definitely still depressed. That's just something we're learning to deal with as a whole industry.
Yeah.
Okay. And in our world as chiropractors, we're looking at function in terms of myofascial function and articular function, right? And biomechanics, right?
Yeah, even moving into the space of breathing biomechanics, right?
Yeah.
Which is very, very, very cool. Man, that's awesome. I'm glad you could speak to this. What would you say to people that either have a known poor VO2 max test, have yet to, actually dive in and do this test, or curious? What kind of input would you give them on a final note?
Those scores that people go by on the charts, it's a score divided by your body weight. So milliliters of oxygen per kg. So when you just look at it, I'll tell people stop and ask them, how are you with math? Pretty good? Awesome. So if you have a high kg, your VO2 max is going to be low. And it's like, now you can come in, we'll do the test in the lab, and because you have more weight than you want right now, your VO2 is going to be lower than it needs to be. So everyone I've seen, unless you have some kind of respiratory disease or chronic fatigue syndrome or something like that, no one's going to have a low VO2. So what's that mean? You got to get your kg down. What's that mean? You got to move. What do I have to do? I don't really care what you do. You got to get moving and get after it. And then your kgs will come down, and then you'll eat better. And guess what? Your VO2 max goes up. So it's pretty simple math up front, but some people still want to come and go, no, give me the number. So when I tell guys, if you're 50 pounds overweight, it's going to be low. Even for elite athletes, it's going to be low. Sure. So, yeah. Interesting.
Can you give a price range of what a standard VO2 max test would be? Just a range.
Yeah, about $150 is where most people charge it. Some universities will do more than that. A lot of people over the years have got testing at the universities like you did, but as a subject in a study. And so sometimes you get the data back. Don't worry, it'll be in the publication. What number am I? You're subject 21. Yeah. So that's generally the range. In the U.S., it's more, and but they're on the way with that as well. As a lot of universities are, hey, let's open the door here. We need some revenue. So.
Yeah. I mean, guys, people, if you're listening, this is the time to make goals for yourself and to start the testing. And if I'm recalling correctly, in Peter Attia's book, people with a VO2 max in the top quartile are 4 times less likely to die of all-cause mortality than people in the bottom quartile. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want to live longer? Do you want to be disease-free? Do you want to function into your years and be independent and dignified and all that? Start with the VO2 max.
Yep.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Really appreciate you coming in.
Oh, this is great, guys. I'm glad you guys are pushing this forward because people need it.
I feel
if
like
someone wanted to book a VO2 max with you, what would they do?
You can just go to our website at tcrsportlab.com, and they'll see the VO2 on the front, and click on that, and away they go. It's pretty easy to do. So
tcrsportlab.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Located in Sinalta, Calgary.
You bet.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it. See you on the next one.